Isoke hid from the villagers under the floorboards, her obese body making it tight and cramped. But she kept as silent as she could as the villagers searched everywhere for her. She closed her eyes and prayed they didn't find her. You won't believe how she got out of this situation, and if she managed to reverse her weight gain curse and the powerful lesson it taught the village. The night was dark and silent as Isoke slipped out of her confinement, her heart pounding with fear and determination. She had finally managed to escape the small, dimly lit room where she had been locked by the villagers, manipulated by Adana's lies. As Isoke moved quickly but cautiously through the village, trying to stay in the shadows, the moonlight cast long, eerie shadows, making everything seem more sinister. Suddenly, a sharp noise cut through the silence. A villager had spotted her. The alarm was raised, and shouts echoed through the night. Villagers began to chase her, their torches flickering and illuminating the darkness. Panic surged through Isoke, but she forced herself to stay calm and focused. She ran as fast as her cursed body would allow, the weight of the curse making every step a struggle. The sound of the villagers' footsteps grew louder behind her, their shouts filled with anger and fear. Desperation clawed at her as she realized they were gaining on her. She darted into the forest at the edge of the village, hoping the thick underbrush would slow them down. Isoke stumbled through the trees, branches scratching at her skin and pulling at her clothes. Her heart pounded in her chest as she pushed herself to keep going. The forest was dense and disorienting, but she knew she had to keep moving. She reached the edge of a steep hill, and without hesitation, she threw herself down the slope. She rolled and tumbled, the rough ground bruising and battering her, but she didn't stop. Finally, Isoke came to a stop at the bottom of the hill. She lay there for a moment, gasping for breath, her body aching from the fall. She could hear the villagers' voices growing fainter as they searched the forest above. She had lost them, at least for now. She knew she couldn't return to the village in her current state. Remembering the boy she had saved much earlier, she decided to seek refuge in his hut. Isoke navigated her way back through the forest, the moonlight guiding her path. Every step was a reminder of her cursed body's limitations, but she pressed on, driven by the hope of finding a safe haven. The journey was grueling, with branches scratching at her skin and underbrush tripping her up. Every snap of a twig or rustle in the bushes made her heart race, fearing it could be the villagers or wild animals. After what felt like an eternity, she finally reached the outskirts of the boy's village. She approached his hut cautiously, unsure of the reception she would receive. Her heart pounded as she knocked on the door, praying they would help her. The door creaked open, revealing the boy's surprised but kind face. "Isoke," he exclaimed, pulling her inside quickly. His family, recognizing her, welcomed her warmly. They had never believed the rumors spread by Adana and were grateful for Isoke's previous help. As she recovered in their humble hut, Isoke shared her story with the boy's family. They listened intently, their faces reflecting a mix of anger and sympathy. The boy's mother spoke softly. "We heard terrible rumors about you, Isoke. The villagers said you were cursed because of some evil deeds, but we never believed them. We knew there was more to the story." The boy's father nodded in agreement. "People in the village are easily swayed by fear and lies. We've seen Adana's manipulative ways before, but many are too scared to stand up to her." The boy's grandmother, an elderly woman named Mama Nkechi, revealed a crucial piece of information. Mama Nkechi had been a close friend of Adana before she married Isoke's father. She sighed deeply, her eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and determination. "Adana and I were like sisters once," Mama Nkechi began. "Before she married your father, we shared everything. I knew her deepest fears and dreams, But when she married into your family, something changed. She became consumed by jealousy and insecurity. She distanced herself from me. But I remember she always kept a hidden journal where she confided her deepest thoughts and secrets. Mama Nkechi paused, looking directly at Isoke. If we can find that journal, it might reveal the truth about Adana's actions and motives. It could help the villagers see the real story and restore their trust in you. It's not just about breaking the curse, it's about healing the wounds in our community. Isoke felt a surge of hope. The idea of the journal seemed like a lifeline. Do you know where she might have hidden it? Isoke asked eagerly. Mama Nkechi nodded. Adana was always secretive about it. She had a special hiding place in her room, a compartment behind a loose stone in the wall. I'm sure it's still there. During her time at Kofi's village, Isoke remained hidden in their hut. Despite their fears, Kofi's family protected her with unwavering loyalty. Several times, villagers came searching, suspicious and influenced by Adana's manipulations. Whenever they heard a knock on the door, Isoke would hide in a concealed space under the floorboards, her heart pounding. One afternoon, a group of villagers arrived demanding to search the hut. Kofi's father stood firm at the door, his voice steady but stern. There's no one here but my family, he said. We have nothing to do with the troubles of your village. The villagers pushed past him, their eyes scanning every corner. Isoke held her breath, the darkness under the floorboards pressing in around her. She could hear their muffled voices above, their footsteps heavy on the wooden planks. She squeezed her eyes shut, praying they wouldn't find her. After what felt like an eternity, the villagers left, muttering among themselves. Kofi's father let out a sigh of relief as he closed the door behind them. He lifted the floorboards, and Isoke emerged, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, she whispered, her voice trembling. Thank you for not giving me up. We believe in you, Isoke, Kofi's mother replied. We know you're not the monster they say you are. Finally, as night fell on the designated day, Isoke and Kofi set out. Navigating through the forest with stealth and caution, they made their way back to the village. Every rustle of leaves and snap of a twig set their nerves on edge, but they pressed on, driven by the need to clear Isoke's name and end the curse. When they reached the edge of the village, they waited for the right moment to move. The village was quieter at night, but there were still patrols of villagers looking for Isoke. Using the shadows to their advantage, Isoke and Kofi made their way to Adana's house. They crept around the side of the house, avoiding the front where the patrols were more frequent. Isoke's heart pounded as she carefully removed a loose wooden panel she remembered from her childhood, creating a small entrance. Kofi helped her through, and they found themselves inside. The house was eerily silent. Isoke led the way to Adana's room, every creak of the floorboards making her wince. They quickly located the loose stone in the wall that Mama Nkechi had described. With trembling hands, Isoke pried it open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was the journal. Relief washed over Isoke, but there was no time to waste. They needed to get out before anyone discovered them. They retraced their steps, slipping back through the forest towards Kofi's hut. Back at the hut, they gathered around a small candle as Isoke opened the journal. The pages were filled with Adana's thoughts, fears, and confessions. It detailed her deep-seated insecurities and the lengths she had gone to manipulate the villagers and curse Isoke. Adana wrote about how good she felt asserting control over others, revealing her true nature. One entry stood out, describing her satisfaction in seeing Isoke suffer. It makes me feel powerful, Adana had written. Watching Isoke's beauty fade, seeing the villagers turn against her, it's the only thing that makes me feel in control. But deep down, I know these feelings come from my own insecurities, my own fears of never being enough. Isoke's hands trembled as she read the words. The pain Adana had caused her was laid bare, but so was the root of Adana's cruelty, her deep-seated insecurities and need for control. This understanding gave Isoke a strange sense of clarity. To break the curse, she needed to address these underlying issues. Mama Nkechi looked at Isoke with a mix of sadness and determination. "We need to show this to the villagers," she said. "They need to see the truth about Adana and understand the real cause of your suffering. Only then can we begin to heal." Isoke nodded. The path ahead was clear, but it was also fraught with danger. She knew confronting Adana and revealing the journal would be risky, but it was a risk she had to take. With the support of Kofi and his family, she felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. As dawn approached, Isoke, Kofi, and Mama Nkechi prepared to reveal the truth to the villagers. They knew the journey back to Isoke's village would be risky, so they decided to move under the cover of darkness. With the journal clutched tightly in Isoke's hands, they set out, their steps cautious and silent. Navigating through the forest, they moved stealthily, every rustle of leaves and snap of a twig making them freeze momentarily. When they reached the outskirts of Isoke's village, they waited for the right moment to enter. The village was still and quiet, with only the occasional sound of nocturnal animals breaking the silence. Using the shadows to their advantage, they made their way to the central square, where they hid and waited for the villagers to gather. As dawn broke and the villagers began to assemble in the square for their daily routines, Mama Nkechi advised them to wait until the crowd was at its peak. This would be the perfect moment to present Adana's journal and expose her deceit. With Kofi and Mama Nkechi by her side, Isoke felt a renewed sense of hope. The three of them approached the central square, blending in with the early morning crowd. The villagers were still wary and suspicious, their eyes scanning for any sign of Isoke. But Kofi's family had managed to keep her hidden, and today was the day she would reclaim her dignity. At the right moment, Mama Nkechi stepped forward and called for attention. "People of the village, I have something important to share with you all," she said, her voice strong and clear. The villagers gathered around, curiosity piqued by the elder's unusual announcement. Isoke, her heart pounding, stepped into the center of the crowd. Murmurs of shock and anger rippled through the villagers as they recognized her. But before they could react, Mama Nkechi raised her hand to silence them. "This young woman has suffered greatly because of lies and deceit," Mama Nkechi continued. "I ask that you listen to what she has to say before passing judgment." Isoke took a deep breath and began to speak. "I know many of you have been told terrible things about me," she said, her voice steady. "But today I bring you the truth. This journal," she held up Adana's journal for all to see, "contains the confessions of Adana, the true cause of my suffering." She opened the journal and read aloud some of the most damning entries, detailing Adana's manipulations and the curse she had placed on Isoke. The villagers listened in stunned silence, their expressions shifting from suspicion to shock and then to anger as the truth sank in. One entry particularly struck a chord. "It makes me feel powerful," Adana had written. "Watching Isoke's beauty fade, seeing the villagers turn against her, it's the only thing that makes me feel in control. But deep down, I know these feelings come from my own insecurities, my own fears of never being enough." As Isoke finished reading, a palpable shift occurred in the crowd. The villagers' anger turned from Isoke to Adana. The truth had shattered the illusion Adana had created. Kofi stepped forward, addressing the crowd. "We have all been deceived by Adana's lies. Isoke is not the monster here. She is the victim. We must stand together to heal the wounds caused by these lies." Just then, Adana, having heard the commotion, pushed her way through the crowd. Her face was a mask of fury and desperation. "What is this nonsense?" she spat, her eyes darting between Isoke and the journal. Mama Nkechi faced her former friend with a steely gaze. "Adana, we know the truth now. Your own words have exposed you. It's time to face the consequences of your actions." Adana's facade cracked, and she lashed out in a desperate attempt to regain control. "You have no proof. This is all lies," she screamed. But the villagers had seen enough. They closed in around her, their faces set with determination. One of the village elders stepped forward. "Adana, your time of manipulation is over. We will no longer be pawns in your schemes." Realizing she had lost, Adana tried to flee, but the villagers blocked her path. With no way out, she fell to her knees, her body trembling with rage and fear. The villagers, now united in their anger and determination to seek justice, stood firm. With Adana on her knees and the villagers surrounding her, Isoke faced a critical choice. She could either seek revenge and have Adana punished harshly, or she could use this moment to heal the village and herself by addressing the deeper issues at play. Isoke stepped forward, her heart heavy, but her resolve firm. "Adana," she began, her voice carrying a mix of sadness and strength. "Your actions have caused immense pain, not just to me, but to the entire village. You sought control because of your own insecurities and fears. We see that now." She turned to Adana, who was still trembling with rage and fear. "Adana, I don't know if you are capable of feeling true remorse, but I believe you need to face the consequences of your actions. You must understand the depth of the harm you've caused." Adana sneered, her eyes filled with defiance. "I don't need your forgiveness," she spat. "I did what I had to do." Isoke took a deep breath, feeling a surge of compassion despite Adana's words. "I don't want you to take this curse, Adana. I wouldn't wish this suffering on anyone, but you brought this upon yourself. The curse you placed on me can only be lifted if it finds a new host, and that host must be you." The villagers gasped in shock, their eyes widening as they realized the gravity of the situation. They watched as Isoke struggled with her emotions, trying to find another way, but deep down, she knew there was no alternative. Mama Nkechi stepped forward, placing a comforting hand on Isoke's shoulder. "Sometimes justice and healing require difficult choices. Adana must face the consequences of her actions." As Isoke made this realization, a warm light began to envelop her. The villagers looked on in awe as the curse lifted from Isoke, her body becoming lighter and returning to its natural state. The light then moved towards Adana, wrapping around her as she screamed in fear and rage. Adana's body began to change, reflecting the weight of her jealousy and deceit. She became the embodiment of the curse she had placed on Isoke, losing her beauty and her influence over the villagers. Her defiance turned to horror as she realized the full extent of what was happening. She felt the curse take hold, her body growing heavier, her skin stretching and transforming. The sensation was overwhelming, a physical manifestation of the bitterness and hatred she had harbored for so long. Her once proud and haughty demeanor crumbled as she looked at her hands, now bloated and twisted by the curse. The villagers who had once been under her control now looked at her with a mix of pity and disdain. The power she had relished was gone, replaced by the very suffering she had inflicted on Isoke. Adana's cries of anguish echoed through the village. "No, this can't be happening. I can't live like this," she wailed, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. The villagers, having seen the truth, turned away from her, focusing instead on Isoke and the healing of their community. The villagers, now united in their understanding and compassion, stood firm. They helped Isoke to her feet, their faces showing a mix of relief and determination. "This is the beginning of a new era for our village," Mama Nkechi said, her voice filled with hope. "We must all work together to ensure that such darkness never takes hold again." The villagers, inspired by Isoke's strength and compassion, vowed to support her and each other in this journey of healing. They embraced Isoke, acknowledging her bravery and resilience, and together they began the process of rebuilding their community free from the shadows of the past.